evening and welcome to Meticulous Moments. My name is Juanita Kapp. You can reach me at meticulousmacarons@gmail.com or find me on LinkedIn. Since the COVID-19 pandemic hit the globe, I've had the wonderful privilege to meet a wide array of fantastic individuals. These individuals have truly touched my life in so many positive ways. Amongst this group of people, there are authors, public speakers, life coaches, poets, leaders, and visionaries. They are the unsung heroes of our time. Therefore, I decided to start the Meticulous Moments movement out of a sense of my gratitude. It is my way of giving back to the community. Let us share and reshare their stories in an effort to build a better society. This evening we have the wonderful privilege of spending valuable time with J.R. Speer. More about J.R. Speer. From getting blown up in Iraq to leading entrepreneurs on how to start and scale their business, J.R. Speer is the founder of Creed Consulting. Since his return from the hot desert of Iraq in 2007, he has built 5 multi-six-figure businesses, ranging from the fitness and martial arts industry, marketing and advertising, to consulting. His mission is to arm small business owners with the right tools and resources needed to grow their business, giving them the direct path to bypass the struggles he had to endure so they can achieve the life and business they desire. He has presented to audiences both large and small in a variety of different settings and contexts. As a presenter, he uses personal stories and life experiences to not only make a point, but to keep your audience engaged and listening. They will leave with practical and applicable steps to take with them beyond that session. Stay tuned for a very interesting interview. Welcome to Meticulous Moments, J.R. Speer. Good day, everyone, and welcome at Meticulous Moments, M&M. Today, we are joined by the wonderful and amazing J.R. Speer. Welcome, J.R.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. We are so excited to have you. Would you please introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, my name is J.R. Speer. I live in the Northern Virginia area in the United States, right outside Washington, D.C. And currently my business is Creed Consulting, where I help small business owners with growth and development, taking them from building out their structure, their business plan, to helping them create the systems and processes that allows them to scale. I built 5 businesses over the past 15 years, ranging from the martial arts industry to fitness space to advertising agency, and now been consulting since 2017 and full-time since 2019. So I'm definitely very blessed. I'm excited about what I'm doing, the people that I'm connecting with. I'm getting ready to launch my first book here, hopefully before the end of the year. So we're actually working on 2 or 3 different books and projects right now. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited about the impact that we get to make and, just kind of get out there and serve and help other people.
Wonderful, wonderful. You have a heart for leadership. Absolutely. And that means you are in the right place today. And I noticed that you are very proactive, which is wonderful. Busy with all these projects. I commend you on that. It has to take a lot of your time and energy.
Yeah, I'm definitely busy. I'll say that.
So thank you for making time for us here today on M&M, and I'm very happy to hear that you are also in the martial arts space. I also am a martial arts practitioner.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, so when it comes to the martial arts, I started martial arts since I took my first breath. Because but literally I grew up in the martial arts school because my mom always owned a martial arts business since I was younger. I have 4 sisters and we all just kind of grew up in that industry and in that space. And even talking about leadership, even from a young age, I've been teaching martial arts since I was 12 years old and just had many amazing opportunities to travel the country, teaching other school owners and entrepreneurs. And I even went to other schools throughout high school to teach, like take over a business class or whatever, teaching about self-defense and awareness. And it was just a really cool experience, but it's also gave me the fundamentals and the character and leadership skills that I have today, and set those foundations to be able to speak in front of people, to be able to lead other people, but also to be able to make an impact. And so martial arts, I'm a firm believer that every child should grow up and learn and some sort of martial arts, because it's not just about learning how to fight or self-defense, but it's the character development skills that we learn that you don't get anywhere else. And so I'm extremely grateful for that, for my mother for bringing me and my sisters up in it, and just having that experience. Because even when I went in the military, I had a lot of opportunities to train Marines and sailors in the martial arts, and and participate in those different spaces. So I've definitely been very blessed with that opportunity, and it's definitely shaped the person that I am today.
I agree with you completely. I agree. And my sensei always says, actually they should make martial arts a part of the curriculum at school, because it teaches discipline and, so many leadership skills. And it's really not just a sport. You would agree with me, it becomes a lifestyle. So I think your mom is really cool. That is amazing. And it was a privilege for you to be raised in that manner.
Yeah, we always say, and I don't know how your sensei does it, but when you tie on that first degree black belt and you put it around your waist, it becomes really heavy, and not heavy in regards to the weight of the belt itself, but heavy in regards to the responsibility that you gain. And that's where your journey actually starts, is when you get that black belt. And I grew up in a very tough type curriculum in the martial arts where, I don't know your experience, but here in the US, we call them belt factories. So there's a lot of places that you pay the money, you get your belts, and you continue going on, but they don't really adapt the skill sets of what a black belt truly is. And it's very sad and unfortunate, but that's how a lot of schools are. For me itself, I started when I was 3 years old, and didn't even get my first degree black belt, I think, until I was like 14 years old. So, but it wasn't uncommon for us to be like one belt for, 2 or 3 years before we even test to get to the next rank. And it wasn't about the rank, it was about the responsibility of who you are as a leader and as an individual that allowed you to be able to get through it. I mean, it wasn't uncommon for like a test to last a full day or 2 days. Like my blue belt test, I'll never forget. Two hardest tests that I had to go through was my blue belt, my black belt. And my blue belt test, my blue belt test, I remember it lasting for like almost 6 to 8 hours, and it was just a beating. And it wasn't necessarily about what you were able to do and how well you did a kick or how well you did a punch. It was about your character of not giving up, and which teaches you is like, hey, are you going to give up? Or are you going to stay in the fight and keep pushing through? And same through the black belt test. My black belt test lasted 2 days, and it's like we did a big portion one day and had to come back and finish the second day. So it was just a really big deal to be able to do that. So I definitely agree with you that it should be part of the curriculum.
Absolutely. At our dojo, the slogan is go hard or go home. So when we have gradings, they are tough. Let me tell you, the gradings are really tough. It really tests you. And we are really focused on personal and professional development. So it's not just about the belts. It's about how you develop as a person and how you take that out into the community. So thank you so much for sharing that with us, JR.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I know that you have a military background in the Navy and that you also worked with the Marines. Would you like to give us some more information on that, please?
Yeah, so it's actually kind of funny of how I did what I did in the military, because when I originally signed up for the military, I was 17. I was a junior in high school, and it was a year, what we call a DEP program. So it was a delayed entry program that I was part of, and I didn't want to go in the military at first, but I didn't know what I was going to do. So I was a little bit of a rebel, even in high school a little bit. And even though I was in the martial arts, I wanted to kind of still do my own thing later on in life, and got myself in a lot of trouble. And so my grandmother, who was a very pivotal person in my upbringing growing up, I grew up with 4 sisters and my mom, single mom, and so a house full of 5 women. So my grandmother and my grandfather were a big part of helping raise us, as well as while my mom was working. So there was a point in high school that I accumulated a lot of different tickets and, speeding tickets, traffic violations, and get in trouble with the law. And I just needed to find some way to pay it off. I got fired from my job. I lost my driver's license, due to different things. So one morning I ended up skipping school. My grandmother came over I didn't have a driver's license. I was like, Grandma, I need to go make some money or find some money to help pay off some of these tickets, and need a little bit of help. So I went and found a bunch of items that I thought I can get money from, and I asked her if she can take me to some pawn shops that I can, sell the items to, so I can pay off some of these tickets while I was in the meantime looking for a job as well. So she did, and she got me in the car. She's like, okay, go in the car, get your stuff, and let's go. Well, she had a different agenda in mind. And what she did was she kept driving by these pawn shops. I was like, Grandma, it's right there. Can we stop by? And she's just like telling me to shut up and be quiet. And so pulls through this back parking lot and, parks the spot. And then looking straight ahead was a recruiter's office. And she says, I don't care what branch you're going to sign up for, but you're going in there and you're not coming out until you sign up for the military. And I'm sitting there talking to her. I was like, what am I going to do? Like, my whole life is getting ready to change at this moment. And I had no idea that I was going to go to the military, but I wasn't going to say no to my grandma. And so I knew I didn't want to go Army or Air Force. And my uncle was a Marine and my grandfather was retired Navy. And, at that moment, I knew I didn't want to go in the Marine Corps because, they just work too hard. They're too gung ho. They work too hard. And so I was like, I'll go be on the Navy. I'll be on the ship. Yeah, so I went, I signed up for the Navy. Went in there and went through the delayed entry program and just fell in love with it. And, when a year later, when I went into boot camp, I like to say that God had a different plan for me. So even though I chose to go in the Navy, God was orchestrating my steps, because I ended up spending my entire time with the Marine Corps. So I was like, okay, I signed up for the Navy, didn't want to go to the Marine Corps, and ended up spending my whole time with the Marine Corps, which honestly was the best place for me because I absolutely loved it. And I ended up changing my jobs while I was in the service, where I was supposed to be on a boat doing something. And then, but I ended up switching to a job called an RP. So I was the religious program specialist, which essentially is security for the chaplain. So chaplains are non-combatants, meaning they can't even carry a weapon for defense. Medical personnel like corpsmen and your doctors, they are non-combatants as well, but they can carry a weapon for defense. They wouldn't go out in front lines and start shooting, but they could have a weapon to protect themselves. Chaplains cannot, so that's why they had me specifically to protect the chaplain. So that was my job in the military. What I did, and I did deploy to Iraq in 2006 to 2007, and there was definitely one. I mean, I saw a lot when I was over there. There was a lot of death. There was a lot of things that happened. I mean, we lost a lot of Marines and sailors while I was over there, but there was one specific day that pretty much changed my entire life. So on February 7th, 2007, I was at a walking checkpoint where we searched everyone that walked in and out of the city. And, on this day, there was a big thing that happened. So I'm at the checkpoint, I'm standing in the center, and then I feel like, the Holy Spirit was telling me, he's like, hey, you got to move, go check on the chaplain. So I pick up, I move, go check on the chaplain, get to this area. And as I was walking, a guy that was walking through was strapped to C4, lifted his arms and blew himself up. And I was standing feet away from him. And, my sergeant major, who was really close to me, ended up dying. My another Marine that I was standing next to lost both of his legs. We lost Jennifer Purcell, who is another female Marine, and we lost Jimmy and a bunch of other injuries and stuff like that. And yet I was the closest person to the blast, and yet I'm still here to be able to share the story. Now, I go in a lot of depth, teaching about that story and the concepts that helped shape me who I am. But it wasn't until about 10 years later where I was reflecting and was like, man, even though that was a very traumatic event in my life, and I still suffer from a lot of PTSD from it, there was a lot of learning experiences from it as well. Because everything that led up to that point of what I call being ambushed had taught us different lessons for it. And one thing that it did teach us was learning how to be prepared for when you get ambushed. So what I call an ambush is pretty much anything that takes you off balance and by surprise. And in business, there's no difference. Like, we go through different cycles, we go through different things in life that's going to throw us off balance, where we are going to get ambushed. And one big one is COVID. So you got the pandemic, you got COVID, you got all these different things. But the problem is not a lot of people were prepared for that. They weren't prepared for a recession, a global recession, the pandemic, businesses closing down, us going in quarantine, everything that took place from it. And we're still struggling with issues from the pandemic in a lot of different places in the world. So the learning lesson from this and from that ambush itself was, I reflected back from the first day that I got off that bus and put my feet on those yellow footprints, when I said, hey, I'm swearing into the United States Navy, and to be able to, with honor and courage, and to give my duty to the military. But it was from that day where they started developing me and changing my mindset and went through that continued training to prepare me for that day. So how many times did we complain when we're sitting on the rifle range, putting thousands of rounds down range on a target while rain is pouring down on you, or we're stepping out on a 12, 20 plus mile hike with a 70-pound pack at dark 30 just to learn how to carry that weight, or we're sitting in classrooms to learn all these different drills, or we're practicing all the different patrols and doing all these physical activity. Well, we had to do all those things to make sure that we were prepared for that ambush, and so we can react without thinking. And that's part of leadership. So leadership is about like learning how to, my personal opinion about leadership is learning how to condition and change someone's mindset to be able to react and be able to get them to, follow through with what you want to do. And you got to have good leaders that are able to make you think differently and to act differently during a time of chaos. And, and I can go through a lot of different things of leadership, but from the listeners on this, if they would walk away with anything from what I'm about to, with anything I'm saying right now, is you got to put in the time, you got to put in the reps, and you got to earn your stripes. What I mean by earning your stripes is in the military, for every 4 years, you get a hash mark that goes on your uniform on your dress uniform for the time that you spent on the service, and that represents the time that you spent, the training that you went through, and just the experience that you have gone through to be able to be where you're at. So most people just want to hit that red button and start printing out cash, and they're like, "Hey, I want to start a business. I want to be a coach and do whatever," but they're not prepared for those difficult times, because the bigger business becomes bigger problems. So if you don't have the foundations in your business first to be able to help manufacture and go through tough times inside of your business, you're going to find yourself burnt out, tired, and struggling, and not be able to have to go through it. So you have to learn. You got to earn your stripes. You got to put in the reps, and you got to learn the skill sets. Go through it, and with that, you need to find someone that's gone through with what you have gone through to be able to teach you. So when you do find yourself in that time of an ambush, you're able to be prepared and be able to maneuver through that time of chaos. So that's a little bit of experience that I went through.
I love that. And there's a few things that popped up while you were speaking. I love the background and everything. And I was thinking when you were discussing the fact that you went through a little bit of a phase of rebellion, getting the tickets and going through losing your job and all of that, there were things that just popped up in my mind. And one of them was, you really were a diamond in the rough then. So God was already busy with you, shaping you into the leader that you are today. Because let's face it, we can't talk to people and lead people and train people if we haven't been there ourselves. So your story is relevant to people who are currently or who have previously gone through similar events. And the second thing I was thinking was about Timothy in the Bible, because you discussed how you worked with you protected the chaplain. And I was thinking, Timothy in the Bible had a very strong leadership. His grandmother and his mother had a very strong leadership role in his life. And I see that here as well, because your mom with the martial arts, training you through the years, turning you into the person that you are, and then your grandmother dropping you off and saying, well, you are enlisting today. And really that kind of, set the stage for you to where you are. I mean, look what you have accomplished in the meantime. Now it's a repetition. What I thought when you were speaking about sitting in the rain, going through the drills, doing the things, building up that muscle memory, it's the same in martial arts, because we don't just do karate, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu and those things just as a sport. We do it because it also teaches us self-defense. So you'll know, JR, we have drilled those moves of the katas and the bunkai so much, we know what the moves represent. So by the time something happens, and I'm sure you taught this in the military as well, it comes naturally. You don't even think of how to react when something happens, when you are in danger. So it's lovely to see your life story unfolding. Thank you for sharing that. I love that.
Yeah. So if I can hit on something, I mean, you said a lot of really cool things, and as a leader, I'm a firm believer that someone that's going to lead other people, they needed to go through the trenches of like the pain, so they can teach and maneuver other people through that pain as well. There was a point recently within the past year that I had a client that called me. It was like 10 o'clock at night, and she called me and she's like in tears, and she's like panicking through something going on. And mainly it was a bad partnership, and then this person was trying to take the business away, and it was just really bad. But I went through a similar situation over 15 years ago, and I'm sitting on the phone with her, and I'm like laughing at her. I'm like, man, you just have no clue. Like you're upset right now, but I'm just letting you know right now, you can't change anything right now. But you just need to go to sleep, get some good breath, and I'm going to walk you through exactly what you need to do. A week later, she had dominated that entire situation, was able to maneuver it, and she just came back and said, "Hey, thank you," because now she's controlling the business. That other person's out of the partnership, not even in the picture anymore. But I wouldn't have been able to help her get through that scenario if I didn't go through it myself. So just like being a rebel and going through all the troubles that I went through, it was preparing me for all the different things and events that happened throughout my life, but also so that way I can teach someone else on how to do this. Another thing it's like, I believe that I went through, the ambush of getting blown up by a suicide bomber and all the experience in Iraq that I went through. And honestly, I had really poor leadership from people in my battalion, and learned how to experience those different things. So I can help other people with my story that are veterans getting out, or entrepreneurs that have gone through similar horrible leadership or similar scenarios in combat, to be able to relate to who they are. Because it's that relation and the leadership that I can help guide them through the steps of what I went through to be able to help get them to where they want to be.
Absolutely. I'm a firm believer of that, and I agree with you 100%, which leads me to the next question. How did your role in the Navy shape you into the leader that you are today? If you had to think about a few incidents.
Yeah, well, honestly, that ambush of getting blown up would definitely had shaken me quite a bit for who I am, because as I said before, after reflecting on that day, learning how we all responded, because it was like, I didn't recognize it at that moment, but like I told you, it was like 10 years later, I'm reflecting on that whole situation. And I'm watching the corpsman who was able to get to the people that got injured. I'm watching the comm who's able to call out for support and get the healers in. I'm watching the leaders, like our staff and COs and our officers, that are controlling everything that's going on, and the other Marines that went out and patrolled the city to make sure there was no other danger that was coming our way. But it was awesome, because looking back, everyone knew their place and their responsibility of what they needed to do, and they were able to react without thinking. So with that, it happened from repetition, almost like the martial arts, what we're doing. You're going to learn how to stand in a horse stance, those punches, those kicks, and you do it thousands of times so that your body knows how to move in a certain way and react when something comes your way. So I always tell people, like, I remember getting in so many different fights. Well, if I would get in a fight and someone would throw a punch and it nails me in the face, well, I'm able to look at them and just start laughing at them, because I'm used to knowing how to take a hit. I know I know what that pain feels like already, so it's no surprise. Yeah. That's the point of the repetition. That's the point of learning how to do things without reacting, so that way there's no surprise. So when you are in that ambush and you're able to react without thinking, it's not a shock to you, and you're able to respond. So that instance, and from getting blown up in the suicide bomber, that definitely gave me a lot of lessons. It's like, hey, if I want to become a better leader, I got to learn to make sure that I'm prepared, that I'm able to make sure that I'm able to react without thinking, and I got to put in those repetitions. So self-development, learning how I'm perfecting my skill set, and learning how to be able to react without thinking for that. So that's one incidence that definitely helped me in the military. The other thing is, kind of the first day that you go to boot camp. I mean, what's the first thing that happens right when you get off that bus? All it is loud noise and chaos, and trying to get you to like get uncomfortable. I mean, you have all the drill instructors just yelling at you nonstop. There's like hundreds of people around there. You have no clue where you're going. They're just in an assembly line going to one place. All right, take off all your clothes. Here's your new clothes. Put all your belongings in a box. And you're just like, what the heck is going on? You have no clue what's going on, but it's all chaos. And it's from that chaos and that part of going through that really teaches you of how to put off all the noise so you can focus on what needs to actually happen. And a lot of businesses nowadays, and if they're not taking advantage of the opportunity of doing things online and through social media or whatever it may be, well, they're missing massive opportunities. But social media and online is such a noisy place. We need to make sure that we are being better producers than we are consumers, and not spending mindless time just scrolling through, consuming our brain with mindless content that's going to just poison us with different things. But through that experience is learning how to block out the noise and be able to focus on the things that need to get done. So that's another scenario in the military that I taught. And just honestly, through the constant training and the leadership of knowing the chain of command and knowing how to be, follow the people that are above you and what to do. Because you are at a point in time when you're in the military where you are that person that people are looking at, and your responsibility is to take care of those below you. and we never leave a man behind. So part of a leadership is knowing that you know how to actually lead them to be able to do the things that need to get done, but also you take care of your own. So and that's a huge thing in the United States military, especially the Marine Corps, where we say, hey, you never leave another man behind. But we had to learn those different skill sets about what that truly means, about honor, about courage, about commitment. And it's learning to take care of your own. And same thing in business. As a leader, I had to learn to take care of my own, and I'm committed to the process for it. So military taught me so many different things when it comes to leadership, and helped shape me who I am today. And I'm extremely grateful for it. But it all goes back to the repetition. It always goes back to earning your stripes and learning prepared for those times of chaos and for the ambush that will come your way.
Wonderful, wonderful. And you were talking about, being punched in the face. And I had to chuckle because I've had a few bloody noses and blue eyes, from punches. Because it's simply my hands were not up at the time, right? So if my hands were up, it would not have happened. So when we do martial arts, we get that kind of body conditioning. And something, as you were talking, something was popping into my mind that leaders have to be thick-skinned. We cannot always just worry about what other people say. Sometimes you take a punch or two, sometimes you take a little bit of criticism, but like in martial arts, it's part of your body conditioning as a leader, so that when you get punched in the face, even though it's bleeding or, your eye is swelling up, you can take it. So do that in leadership as well. Be thick-skinned and just, focus, and don't be, like you said, don't be influenced by the toxic comments of other people as well. And then I love the way how you take what you learned in the military, in the Navy and in the Marines, and you draw it over into your business, and into your training. I love the principles that you really pick out. That is very unique.
Yeah, I have a funny story talking about getting hit in the face. So when I was like 16 or 17, I was part of a pro kickboxing team. And I had a big ego and stuff like that. And it was during a training day. There was another girl. She was probably in her 20s and stuff like that. And you could tell that she was, in there to really take it serious. And my coach, he was like, all right, let's get in the ring, JR. And I'm getting in the ring with her. I put my gloves on. I was like, okay, you're gonna have me fight this girl. She's about a little bit shorter than me and stuff like that. So I had this ego and things like, okay, she's a girl. I'm going to take it easy. I get in the ring. I put my hands up and we're circling around. And her first punch, boom, right in my face. She busted my nose and I just had blood everywhere. I just looked at it and I'm just smiling. I was like, wow, okay, I just got my head spun. But I ended up just, clogging up the blood and stuff. And I got back in there and I was smiling. I was like, okay, I'm going to take it a little bit more serious now. And, but it's one of those things that, even though I got hit in the face and she did it, first off, I had to get rid of my ego and understanding that there are people that are better than who you are, which teaches you that even the people that you think are underneath you, we all have something to learn from someone. Doesn't matter who they are. And so I immediately went in there with an ego thinking I was already better than this person. I was like, oh, I've been fighting my entire life and all these different things and been doing kickboxing since I was a little kid and Muay Thai and all these different stuff. So I was like, oh, this is going to be easy. And, just kind of training and going in there. But she went in there and just, I wasn't really paying. It took me by surprise. And that's the thing about life is there's going to be different things in life that are going to take us by surprise. But there's also something that we can learn from other people that we believe are younger than us. So we can't prejudge someone's skill sets. I mean, we can learn things even from children. Being grown adults, our children can teach us something. And we can't go in with the ego thinking that we are, the one all be all and know everything. Even if you are the leader and the big chief in command that's supposed to lead other people, because even people down in your community, in your battalion, and your company of who you're serving, we all have something that we can learn from them. And I think that's what a great leader does as well, is we always have the mindset that we can learn and we need to grow ourselves. And we need to make sure that we don't go in there thinking that we're the one all be all and no one can teach us anything. Because I think there's a lot of leaders out there that when they're coaching, when they're leading, or when they're CEOs of company, that they are like everything goes through them and they're the only answers to everything. But the truth is we have people in our battalion that we can learn from as well. And we need to make sure we drop that ego and step in and knowing that they're part of our team. And even though you're the leader of the team, a great leader is going to be part of the team and everyone's looked at as an equal to be able to knowing that we can learn and grow from each other.
I agree with you. We never stop learning as leaders. If you're a leader, you are committed to lifelong learning. And, we should never underestimate our opponents. I'm sure we've all done that before. So, but that's human nature, but it teaches us valuable lessons. Now, the next question is, through all the years of your active service, what were the key lessons that you've learned? You've mentioned now that we keep learning from other people. You've mentioned that we shouldn't underestimate others. What are some key lessons that you've learned, principles that you can draw out?
Yeah, it's really easy. It's the core values of honor, courage, and commitment. And commitment is the huge piece of it, that you got to be committed to the process. You got to be committed to the training. You got to be committed to the things that it's going to take to make sure you're prepared. Recently on my podcast, I have a podcast called the Daily Creed Podcast Show. And I interviewed someone that's pretty phenomenal. And his name's Eli Sanchez. And he's just a wealth of knowledge, connected with a lot of really great people. But he says something very simple that honestly changed my mindset to a lot of different thinkings. And even though I knew it, he broke it down in a very simple way. And I've been teaching this to all of our clients for a while now and been talking about it. But the big question I asked him was, like, what are some key things that separates a successful entrepreneur and someone who's not successful, or a six-figure entrepreneur and a seven-figure entrepreneur? And he broke it down into three things, which the reason why I'm saying this is because it ties into a lot of the military principles as well. Well, the first one is commitment. He said those that are successful, what separates them is the level of commitment. Most people are not fully committed to the process or the things that it takes to actually build their business. You have to be fully committed to it. I believe that it's almost impossible to be 100% committed, because we got family, other obligations, other interests that we enjoy, but we might be around 75 to 80% committed to what we need to do. But usually it's due to the lack of commitment and sacrifice that it takes to build a successful business. The second key thing when it comes to being committed is consistency. Being consistent. So we had to be consistent with the processes and the things that we needed to do to make sure that we're showing up every day doing it. So just like the reason why I'm mentioning this, because in the military, you got to be committed to the process. You got to have honor, you got to have courage, but you got to be consistent with your training to make sure that you are prepared for when you get ambushed. So same thing in our business. We got to make sure that we are consistent and doing things on a regular basis. So that way we can follow through and do it. Because most people give up too soon. That's why they never see success. They end up building it for 1 or 2 years, and they were like, man, this is really hard. I need to find something new. And yet they were at the edge of the cliff, just saying, hey, ready to go over to really explode something really big. But people just give up too easy. They're not committed and they're not consistent with the things that they need to do. And the last thing is organization, which in the military, it's all about the organization, the systems and the processes and the order that it takes to actually build a machine. And the organization, what I mean is not by filing your paperwork, but it's the organization being organized with the systems and the processes of taking care of your own, which in the military, it's all about taking care of your own, taking care of the person to your left and right. And in business, it's no different. You got to learn to take care of your own, but you got to have the systems and processes that's going to help complement what the mission is. So it's going to be commitment, consistency, and organization. And the same thing in the military. We got to have honor, courage, and commitment. We got to be consistent with our trainings to make sure we're prepared for the ambush, but we got to be organized with order. And those are some key things that I've learned and took away from the military that can definitely help any entrepreneur or any person that's listening to this to really level up and make a difference and impact in the world.
Yeah. And that's what we want to do. We want to impact the world. And we want to, lead by example. So if we are consistent as leaders, we are showing the world, how we go about our day and how we don't give up, and how if something doesn't go the way we planned it, then we are resourceful and we find another way to, to get the job done or to reach our goal. So I love that. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Our next question, are there any camp or training stories that you can share with us? We would love to hear them.
Oh man, like what kind of training stories?
Maybe on the field, something
you want some humor, or you want to tie it back to leadership? I mean, there's, I have 1,000 different stories, but there's a couple of them that I would talk about, but to kind of keep it relevant to what we're talking about today. Is my first duty station was I was the battalion RP, so battalion chaplain's assistant at OCS, which is Officer Candidate School for the Marine Corps out of Quantico, Virginia. And, it's like the boot camp for officers in training. So like for me, I was enlisted. So I went to my boot camp, and this is for officers to go through their training. And so I was not an instructor, but I was part of the staff. And I did all the training with the candidates as as much as I can. And over the summertime, there was always 6 companies on deck. So a company could have, a lot of people inside of it. And then they're all kind of on the same training schedule as well. And, there was a week where like 3 or 4 companies were going out on 12-mile hikes throughout the day. And I remember I was doing like a 12-mile hike every single day, going out there and be like, okay, let me strap on my pack. I'm going out there because essentially what the chaplain does, yes, we're there to provide moral support. And that's a big thing that what we do when we're out in combat is provide moral support to the Marines and sailors that are there. And so we're the first experience of any type of ministry or whatever it may be before they go out in the field and get them exposed to like what the relationship between an RP and chaplain is. So we're out there and doing our hike. And, it's kind of funny because like I always call myself, the smiling face, or I bring the moral support to them. But while you're supposed to keep a straight face, it's probably like 1 a.m. It's pitch dark out in the middle of these trails and out in the field and stuff. And you can't see to your left or right. So you're trying to like stay within feet of the people in front of you so you can see their pack. And we got the candidates on the left and right. And I'm walking up and down the center and stuff like that. And the gunnies, their drill instructors going down, yelling at them, keeping their eyes forward, be quiet, don't smile, don't do all these different things. And I'm going around behind the drill instructors and I'm talking to the candidates and making them smile, having a good time, and then getting them in trouble and stuff like that. So, that was kind of fun of like, it's not a crazy story, but it's fun for leadership. So like while the instructors are trying to keep them composed with what they are supposed to do, and I am I'm going around and kind of ruining it for them and getting these other candidates in trouble, trying to just make light and letting them know, saying, hey, you're a human being. So, but one thing that was my goal for being out there, whether I was at OCS or when I was out with 2-4, the 7th Battalion, 4th Marines, is, as the RP, the one thing that people value most, and the reason why I'm telling the story, because it's very relevant for the listeners to really take. The one thing that people value most is their own personal name. When you are wearing the uniform, you're identified by only a few different things. One is the rank on your collar, and 2 is the title that you have. Very little do people even know who you are. It's by your last name, by your rank, and whoever. So you'd be like, hey, Sergeant Spear, RP3 Spear, whatever it may be, is based off your rank and then the title you have and maybe your last name. But no one really knows you as a human being, as a person. You're another number in the mix. Yeah. So the reason why I say the story about me going on that hike with the candidates, because even though I was trying to be that smiling face for them, I made it a really goal of getting to know each one of those candidates by name personally. So when we're out on this hike and I'm making them smile, making them laugh, and I'm building that connection with them, I was building that connection because I got to know who their name was. So when it's pitch black, I am calling by their name and I'm giving them a little inch of hope. Hey, even though you're in a crappy situation, even though you're being yelled at nonstop, even though you're so tired that you can and hungry that you can't even think about what's in front of you, I am going out there and saying, hey, you're a real person. I value you as a human being. I value you as not just a candidate, but a real person. And I do so by making an effort to get to know you by your name. And that's such a huge, powerful way because their spirit gets lifted up so much higher. Now they got an inch of hope. Be like, oh man, I can do this. I'm not forgetting who I am as a person. And these people are here to really help me, not necessarily hurt me, to get me through this training. So while we're out there on this hike and doing different stuff, and they're completely exhausted, they're completely feeling like, why am I even doing this? They're losing hope. They're hungry, mental capacity, because they're sitting in classrooms all day trying to cram all this information. They're studying during the time that they need to get rest, and it's just a lot of information that they need to do. But by me remembering their name and who they are, it made such a huge impact on them because it built that connection and it gave them the hope. So that's one thing that I really made an effort while I was in the military as an RP, was to get to know people as a human being and know their name. When they came to me, I recognized them for who they are. And then that gave them that inch of hope forward. Same thing in our business. When we were working with clients, when we're working with customers, whoever that is, don't just identify them by another number or transaction. Get to know them by their name and who they are. And then you're going to have that relationship and that connection so much greater, because now they feel like that you actually care about them and that you're a partner and you want to help them with their success, versus just getting their credit card and making them feel like the next client.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And when you were describing what happened on that morning hike, I was thinking that, that is authentic leadership right there. Knowing that someone is a person, validating them by acknowledging that they have a name. They are important, they are part of the team, and the team needs to work together to get things done, and then getting them to that place of hope, because sometimes just putting a smile on someone's face changes their whole day. So I commend you on that, because too often people just become numbers. And a person can never be seen as that. A person wants to be accepted and acknowledged and, even loved in some certain teams and so on. So I commend you on being an authentic leader. And I can just imagine the frustration of everybody screaming in the line, be serious, and you putting the smiles on everybody's faces, but just bringing that hope into their lives. That is amazing.
Yeah. Well, it just made them feel like human again. And because when you're going through that training, your eyes are forward, they're looked down at the ground, and you're just putting one foot in front of the other, and you don't even know what's going to happen next. And you're just trying to survive and get through the next task. And when someone comes around and really remembers you by your name and who you are, it can change your entire world.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. Now the routines. What was the routine like when you were in the Navy morning and evening, or when you were spending time with the Marines? What is the daily routine, for instance, when you are in service?
Man, there is no scheduled routine for my job. Now, granted, other people would have a different experience, is because I was always everywhere. My goal is to be part, like when we have our battalion, we have different companies within battalion, and my job is to go out there and really connect with each one of them. So for me, I was really my focus was to go out there and just really connect with them. If they're going on the rifle range, I'm on the range with them, because I want to get better at shooting. I want to make sure I'm alongside of them, letting them know, hey, I'm here too. I want to be able to, prepare and become a better expert at whatever I'm working on right there. And I wanted to and be part of what they're doing. So whether on the rifle range, whether they're going for hikes, whether they're doing runs, whether we're doing water training of some kind out in the water, I always made sure that I went out there and do it. So part of my routine on a regular basis, one, physical fitness was huge, because I believe that we mentally or physically had to be prepared. So I wasn't just making sure that I was physically prepared for myself, but I was out there doing it with them, alongside with them, and going through all the hard times with them as well. So they knew, hey, you're not alone, type of those things. So my routine was completely different than the average person, just because my job, there's only a very few of us as RPs in the Navy that served with the Marines. And so, you can't really compare my routine to other people. But, if you want to break it down, every morning you always have to check in. Because everything's about accountability and there. So you got to get ready. You got to make sure your uniform is on point. So you get up, your uniform is on point. You got to make sure you're clean shaven. You got to make sure you have your haircut done. Every Sunday, we made sure we had a haircut, especially Marine Corps is about image. It's about routine and image. So we got to make sure that everything was squared away. So every Sunday I would get a haircut. Every Friday was field day of your barracks room. So your senior enlisted would come around looking at your room, making sure that everything was on point, make sure your rack is squared away and things were organized and clean the way that it needed to be, because everything's about attention to detail. So it's learning how to take order from those above you, and learning to respond and and do so without any complaining. Because too many people, and it's sad, but in today's generation, our youth do not know how to take direction. They don't know how to take discipline. And it's a sad truth. But when people are saying you don't have the opportunity to say no, you don't have the opportunity to think, you don't have the opportunity to question what's being told from you, and doing the different, like cleaning up your room and making your rack. And you're doing so because you're told to do it. Because if you're in a time of combat and you're in a war zone, and your senior enlisted personnel says, JR, duck, and you want to question, like, why do I need a duck? And that could be life or death right there. Why do I need to move here? That could be life or death. So it's learning to take order and recognizing your leadership's voice to be able to respond without thinking, because we don't have the opportunity to question it, because that questioning could be life or death in any situation. So a small thing is saying, hey, JR, go get your pack, get over here and do it fast. Like my kids, I have a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and almost 2-year-old, and they want to be like, okay, like they just want to ignore me for what I'm doing. I'm like, you don't have the opportunity or luxury to question what I'm telling you to do. If I say get over here, you need to run and you need to do it fast. But it's teaching them, saying, hey, you need to respond quick. Because if you're in the middle of, let's just say we're at a park or in a parking lot and there's a car flying down the road and they're in the middle of the parking lot and they want to question me like, Daddy, I don't want to come. And they want to keep crossing over, but I'm telling them to move now. Well, I'm telling them to move for a reason because I don't want them to get hit by a car. So it's learning to bring that order, and it's learning for them to recognize my voice and to be able to respond when you're being told to do something. So part of routine was learning to making sure that your uniform is squared away because there's attention to detail. Is making sure that you're clean shaven, make sure you have a clean haircut. Then it's going to check in with your accountability. So who do you need to check in with? For me, it was always the S1, the headquarters office, or our chaplain, to making sure like, okay, he's here, he's alive, and we're ready to take care of business. So it's to check in. And then in the day, I went and did whatever tasks I needed to do that we planned for, whether it's going to be on a hike, whether it's going to be out with whatever company to do, whatever training that we need to do. So that was always throughout the day. Then you have the checkout with your senior personnel. Be like, okay, we're done. Do you have anything else that you need from me? Or are you standing duty, whatever that is? And then you go off and do your own thing. So, I mean, you become you adapt to the whole situation, and it just becomes part of your regular lifestyle. And but I will say habits building the routines create habits that creates function in a time of chaos. So everything I talk about is about time of chaos, learning to be ambushed, but part of that routine is for that reason, and it's learning how to be able to respond without thinking.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yes, and that actually relates to our next question, because I'm asking next, how does the discipline fit into the concept of leadership? And I'm thinking, when you went out on that field and you did the fitness with them, and you went out on the shooting range and you shot with them, and you were just accompanying wherever they went, you really generated that respect. That also created some trust. So, in leadership, we have to be involved with the people that we lead. We have to, pitch up. We have to show up ourselves, and we have to be disciplined ourselves, because the people that we lead, they are focused on us. They are watching us. And if they see something they don't like, maybe they won't respond and be disciplined, as we would like them to be. So I think it's wonderful that you are teaching your children to be disciplined. I think we should all do that as parents. And I'm still, happy to do the fitness and make sure the uniform, because here at Meticulous Moments, we love detail, right? Attention to detail. So I'm thinking, if I was in your situation, the fitness would be fine. Putting the uniform in order would be fine. And, fixing the rack every morning, which I think is a bed.
Yeah. Yeah, the rack is your bed. Yeah.
But getting a haircut every week would not work for me. So
I mean, it's all about paying attention to detail. And when you're talking about discipline as a leader, and it's not just about the physical discipline, but it's the mental discipline as well.
Yes.
So we got to make sure that we're sharp up here in our heads, but we're also sharp physically. And here's the thing about discipline. It's like you first need to identify the key threats. And what I call the threats are the problems that we're going to be overcoming. So if you're thinking from a combat situation, we have to know what are the potential threats that we might be coming against when we are in combat. Well, we're going to be fighting IEDs. We're going to be fighting possible suicide bombers. We're going to be fighting against snipers. We're going to be fighting against the environment as a whole. So we got to first identify those. In business, we got to identify the potential threats, the problems that we're solving for our clients. What are the problems that you can solve? And then you got to create the plan. So you identify the threats, which are the problems. Then you got to create the plan that's going to help you make sure that you're sharpening your iron for those different things. So if I know I'm going to be in a combat situation and I got to make sure I'm able to respond without thinking, that I got to carry my flak, my Kevlars, all the ammo. So I'm probably going to have 50 to 100 pounds with me 24/7. Am I going to be physically ready to be able to do that 24 hours a day for probably a year? Every single day, all the time. Am I mentally disciplined to making sure that I'm able to do that and I have the things in order as well? So when you identify those key problems, now I'm going to create the plans that help get there. So I might have to have my workout regimen. I might need to have an eating plan regimen. I might need to have certain self-development to help make sure that I'm prepared to be with the knowledge and the skill sets to be able to do what I need to do. So you identify the threats, then you create the plan, and then the last piece is executing the mission. So you got to execute the plan that you just created. And if you don't put those three things together and take immediate action, because action creates momentum that leads to success. So you need to make sure that you execute it, but you got to identify what is that plan. So we talk about discipline, military, and everything that we need to do as far as a leader as well. Well, I got to be physically disciplined to making sure that I'm doing the things that I'm prepared for that, but I got to be mentally disciplined to making sure that I'm sharp up here mentally to be able to do the things that need to get done. So I am prepared for the day when I get ambushed.
Absolutely. So it's all tying in, and it's coming to me in 3 sentences. And the first one is we establish that leaders have to be thick-skinned. I'm thinking that leaders have to be problem solvers.
Yeah.
And I'm also thinking that leaders have to be mentally strong.
100%. And then the last piece is that leaders need to take massive action. It's one thing in knowing what you got to do, but if you don't take action on it, how many entrepreneurs they get in this realm, they're just stuck and constantly consuming information, hiring coaches, joining masterminds, doing these different things. It's like, you got the knowledge now, do it. And people don't do it. They don't take action. So like you could be a certified personal trainer, or let's just say this, you could be a certified nutritionist who is 200 pounds overweight. You know what you need to do to lose those 200 pounds, but you don't have the mental, physical discipline to follow through and do it. So you should not be leading other people how to do it because you haven't got yourself in order first.
I agree with that. We have to set that example because, as I've said, people are watching. They are watching.
Well, lead by example. Yeah. If you're not willing to follow through and do it yourself, then what gives you the right or privilege to be able to teach someone else how to do it? You have no credibility. And how are you going to help people maneuver through different problems or difficult times when you can't even get yourself fixed? Yeah,
true. Very true. Now, my next question. What was the worst display of leadership that you ever encountered?
Oh, man. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't want to throw anyone pretty much under the bus, but, honestly, the chaplain that I served with in Iraq, he was a horrible leader to me and exemplified what you shouldn't have. And honestly, he's a big reason why I decided to get out when I had every intention of making a career out of the military. And they were more focused on image and who they are and who they were pleasing and what they were able to accomplish. That for me, I got NJP'd, which is National Judicial Punishment, twice in Iraq. And when I tell you the reasons why I got NJP'd, you're just going to laugh at it, because here we are in a combat zone and they first NJP me saying I was being UA, unexplained absence, like almost trying to become a deserter in the middle of a combat zone. When I checked out with my sergeant and my headquarters battalion, went to main side of this camp to drop off my laundry before we went out to FOBs or out to the command. And I came back and they're telling me I was trying to become a deserter. I'm like, you got my name right here. I went with like 8 other Marines, literally went there and came back. How am I trying to become a deserter? So that's number one. So to me, I don't know what point they were trying to make, but it was like a control issue that he had, that he was trying to make a point with me that he can control what I do and say and all these different things. The other point is we were out for a long mission one night in Aramati, very dangerous place. Ended up coming back to our main camp where we're at. It was middle of the night, flew in by helicopters, got in there, and we had to get up really early the next day to do some other things. And I took off my blouse, which is like your shirt, your jacket that you wore. So I took off my blouse and I had it in our office area, and my sleeping tent was maybe 25 or 50 yards away from where that was. So I left that in my office area to go back to my tent, woke up early morning. So I probably had 4 or 5 hours of sleep. And I was like, oh, where's my blouse? Forgot where it was. So I went over to my office tent and I was like, I know I left it here. Where's it at? He's coming. My chaplain is coming over with my first sergeant with my blouse in the hand and reading my rights, telling me that and give me battalion NJP, which is much higher, saying that I was disobeying a direct order and uniform code. Because in the Marine Corps, there's an order for everything. So they don't have to directly tell you. It's expected that we need to know. So because I didn't have my uniform on correctly and I'm walking around camp, which keep in mind, a lot of the Marines and sailors in the camp area where we're at, we're walking around with their sweatshirts and things like that or whatever. Yeah. And yet I was still really good. Just went over to get my blouse to put it on, and he's carrying it over there. And they're saying you're disobeying a direct order and uniform code. They took probably 2 or 3 months of tax-free pay while I was there. So I'm stuck in the middle of combat zone. They're taking away 2 or 3 months of pay. And when I'm not out there doing other missions of what we're doing, I'm back on camp filling sandbags when it's supposed to be my rest period. So talking about poor leadership, where they're more focused on more control over me because they're trying to prove some sort of point, which I didn't even know what that was. That they wanted to make an example of me in some way, which I still don't even understand till today. But I knew because of that I needed to get out of that battalion, and I ended up getting out of the military, because of that, because I was like, I'm not dealing with these games. So, so that, talking about poor leadership, when they're focusing more on their ego and control and who they are than the mission ahead, to me, that's horrible leadership. And that's exactly what that chaplain did. And it was just, it was very poor leadership from him, but it was also poor leadership of my battalion commander that allowed something like that to even go through. So I put just as much blame on them as well as the chaplain. So even to this day, I still understand the point that they were trying to make. It was just more of trying to control of who I was. And I was very squared away. And I like to think that I was always on point, made sure that I was disciplined in my physical, my mental fitness. I was always there to make sure that things needed to happen and, and follow direction. And for whatever reason, he just had something against me. So, so that was the biggest example of poor leadership. Now, not all the military is like that, but it's unfortunate that even in the military, you will come across people that are so-called leaders that want to try to make sure that their ego and who they are is bigger than everyone else around them.
Horrible, absolutely horrible. And what you went through doesn't even make sense. So, sometimes things happen. I have no idea why they acted that way. Like, it has to be because you mentioned that they are control freaks. So, audience, as leaders, don't be control freaks and keep your egos in check, because a leader has to be someone who practices humility.
Yeah. So here's the crazy thing. Like, that chaplain was relying on me 100% to protect his life. And yet he was still treating me as such. And that NJP, the battalion one, happened just a few weeks or a month prior to us getting blown up by that suicide bombing. And during that blast, when it happened, I was thrown and left unconscious. And the chaplain, I couldn't see to my left or right. I didn't know if I lost my limb because I couldn't move my right arm, raise my rifle. I didn't know if my leg was blown off because I was completely numb on my whole entire right side of my body. And I still struggle with pain with my right arm, which is why I don't even fight anymore. But I have a hard time with moving my right arm. Right side of my face is still kind of numbness to my left side. So I have a lot of nerve damage over there. And so, but when that blast happened, I was left unconscious. I saw the chaplain trying to crawl on the ground, and I grabbed him by the flak. Even though I couldn't move, my adrenaline was pumped. And I was like, I didn't know he was in a suicide bomber. We thought it was mortars coming in or something. But I grabbed him by the back of his flak because he could barely move, and he's trying to crawl. And I dragged him probably 25 yards underneath shelter. But after that instance, when he was able to see that, his RP was there to protect him and he meant business, he made himself look like a fool for everything that he did on trying to give me a bad name. The way that he treated me, I mean, no one bothered me from that day on. Like, no one, because they were, to me personally, I feel like that they were embarrassed for the way that they allowed him to treat me, but also how the leadership of the battalion treated me during the incidents. Because, like, wow, what the chaplain was saying about me must not have been true, because I showed up, I was able to do what I was called to do when I needed to do it. And from like that happened February 7th of 2007, we got back from deployment May 31st. No one messed with me from that day on. And I truly think that they were embarrassed by what they did before. So,
wow, you saved him. You did your job. You were there. You were present in the moment. And to my mind, God vindicated you. And that's powerful.
He definitely protected me during that situation, because, in Psalm 91, it talks about 1,000 may fall at your side and 10,000 at your right hand, but it shall not touch you. And I memorized that verse when I was over in Iraq, and like the majority of the whole verse, every time I got behind the Humvee or I went out on a mission somewhere, I prayed that over me. And while I was driving down to that checkpoint with the convoy, I prayed that over me and stuff like that. So I knew that God was protecting me. I knew that he was watching over me and my steps and had a bigger plan for me than just what I endured in the military.
Amen, JR. Amen. I believe that.
Yeah.
Now to the other extreme. What was the best display of leadership that you ever saw or encountered?
There was a lot of really good examples, but when you asked me about that question, there's one particular moment that really showed me what a great leader was. And fortunately, it was my sergeant major that died there in that suicide bombing that we were both in. Shortly before that event took place, he really took. I mean, every Marine and sailor that was part of the battalion, he made an effort to get to know them first by their name, but also to making sure that they were prepared and ready for something that may happen. And it's a challenge being a Navy personnel embedded into a Marine Corps unit, because Marine Corps, they're tough individuals, and to be called one of their own, you really got to show off and show up at your best all the time, because you want to feel like that they want to call you your own. And I feel like a lot of the Marines that I served with really called me one of their own and really took me under the wings for who they are. So my sergeant major, I'll never forget, there was one time when we were in our camp down in Barwana, and he took me, he came and got me, wasn't even planned, but he came and got me, and he's spending, it was probably a good 2 or 3 hours or longer, and he's walking me around this entire camp, taking me to every single section of what people do, like teaching me, hey, here's our combat engineers. This is what they do. This is how they do it. He's taking me over to our artillery unit. He's taking me over to our tank units and all these different things, and really teaching me about what they did, and even with comm, and how I can really make a difference with these people and interact with them. And that day really showed me a different side, because here he's Big Papa Bear, like he's the sergeant major of our entire battalion, and you just don't disrespect him. And he was the Marine of the Marines, and and someone that people feared, but also feared with love, and knew that he had your back. And it was that one day where I saw a completely different side of him. I was like, wow, I never really had someone at his caliber, who he was, take me under their wings and really teach me what he taught me from that one day. And from a leadership standpoint, it really showed me a lot of really making sure that your own are prepared, and that your own knows their job, knows their place, but just really caring. And it was so awesome just kind of having, I was just quiet the whole time, and just like, and just kind of soaking in. I'm taking notes of everything he's saying, like, oh man, this is amazing, and just really learning from him. And so from a leadership standpoint, I have a lot of really good examples of different leaders that I served with. That's one good example. I want to share one more too, but that was Sergeant Major, and he really showed me a lot. Another one, this is when I was at OCS, and talking about being uncomfortable in your situation to help someone else really makes a big difference. And this guy's name's Corporal Rod, Hector Rodriguez is his name, and I think he got out as a sergeant and stuff like that. He really took me under his wings as well, and just really showed me what it meant to, like, what a Marine was, and taught me so much about it. But there was one time that now he was staff, he wasn't a candidate, so he was staff with them, and candidates were out there. I don't know if they were doing a run or they were doing some obstacle or what, but there was a candidate that ended up passing out or whatever. And I remember him grabbing him, pulling him over his shoulders, and like running, like, it had to be like 1 to 3 miles, because he needed medical attention fast. I don't know if he got really sick or he passed out in the middle of heat, whatever it was. And on run. And from that day, Corporal Rod, he took the time, and I'm talking about over like a couple of years period, where he taught me what it meant to be a Marine, and what the Marine lifestyle was, how to interact with them, how to do all those different things. But in a time of being uncomfortable in the middle of heat and different things going on, he took his comfort level to really make sure that this other person is being taken care of. And it really showed a lot of people about, like, hey, you take care of your own. And to me, that was amazing leadership. So those are two of many, many examples. I can talk all day about different experiences that I had on great leadership in the military, but those are two that really brought to my mind.
It really comes across that thankfully you had more experiences of better leadership, the best leadership, than you had with the worst. So I'm very happy to. Yeah, that's amazing. That makes me very happy to hear. And, we are learning from you today, and leaders can really take what you've been through, your experiences, and look and see in their lives and apply it into the experiences that they are currently going through. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Yeah, no, thank you for give me the platform to share it.
Thank you. And my next question is, what is your worst fear as a leader?
My worst fear as a leader. That's a hard question, because like I don't really live my life in fear, and I look at everything as an opportunity. But if there was something that I would probably look at, and honestly, it has nothing to do with my clients, but my main mission in my life is my kids and my family. So my mission is to making sure that my kids are growing up to live a God-loving, God-fearing life, and that they get to know who Christ is, and just really be disciples of Christ. And so like one of my fears, which I can't really say is a fear, but like my mission is where I would be extremely disappointed if they grow up and not really having a good example from me of what living a Christian life of knowing who Christ is and being disciples, and that they steer off in a different direction as they grow up. Because I wanted to make sure that I'm not just telling them what a Christian is and how to be a good disciple, but being able to exemplify it and being that a good example. So as a leader, the one thing that I do, that I would be more disappointed and kind of fear is not being able to be that leader to my kids, so that they learn to grow up to be those disciples.
Wonderful answer. And I agree with you. Our family and our children are super important. And I really think leadership starts at home. Before we can even think of leading other people, we have to lead at home. Wonderful answer. Now, leaders, in your opinion, are they born or are they formed?
I think it's a combination of both, but I do believe more so that they can be formed. But I think we're born with different abilities. But I believe leadership traits, it all starts with your environment and what you're in. So if you're born into a home of chaos, it's going to be really hard to grow up to exemplify what a great leader is. But if you are born in a place of high energy and very disciplined and just loving type environment, well, then it's going to be easier to do it. So it starts with your environment. I think we are born with different tendencies and different skill sets and different genes that can help make us better. But I also believe that a great leader can be formed and developed over time.
Agreed. I think it depends on the situation. And if there's one thing that COVID showed me is that there were people they just rose to the occasion. People that never thought of themselves as leaders in that moment. When COVID hit and when the whole world fell flat on its face, people really stepped up to the plate. And I enjoyed seeing that, because it was very interesting to see how, human nature is to, directed at surviving. So that was a wonderful a lesson to learn. So I agree. It depends on the situation. Now, my next question is about Creed Consulting. Please tell us about Creed Consulting. We would love to know more.
Yes. So with Creed, my whole goal, my whole mission with the business is to help small business owners generate wealth. So we start with the growth and development of their business from the foundations to building systems and processes that allow them to scale. And I want to talk a little bit about the name of what Creed is, because I wanted to take a completely different approach than the average consulting business, coaching business. I didn't want the mindset of it being a transaction. So I didn't want it to be 6-figure coach, 7-figure mastermind, or anything like that. I wanted something of core values that actually has something of purpose. So I leaned on my martial arts background. I leaned on my military background and the belief of core values of what I expect for myself and be accountable to, but also for our clients. So it stands for commitment, resilience, excellence, execution, and discipline. So what I always ask our clients, and even those on my podcast show, is what is the one thing that you're most committed to? Like, what is your mission? What's one thing you're most committed to, that you're going to be resilient even through the most difficult times, that you're going to show up every day giving your best, which about black belt excellence. We do it our best even when no one's watching, and having the mental and physical discipline to complete your mission. So those are the core values of what I instill for myself, and that's what I instill for our clients. So within Creed Consulting, I love working with coaches, those in the fitness space, martial arts space, health and wellness, nutritionists, and things like that. But I have people outside of that space that help as well. But we do everything from the foundations to help build the systems and processes and depending on what program that they're actually part of, we'll actually build out their assets, meaning we'll put everything together from their membership site, shooting their videos, to all the assets of their sales funnels, the marketing funnels, their webinar funnels, the email marketing. We put everything together that allows them to serve and make an impact to their clientele.
Fantastic, fantastic. And we are going to be sharing, after this interview, your contact details for those in the audience. Please, that have heard now what JR is saying about his business, please have a look at Creed, because, he is a very strong leader and he wants to elevate your business. So look into it. And first, obviously, before you reach out, find out and formulate something, what you are committed to, even if it's personal or professional, lifelong development, if it's leadership or anything else. Find that out, contact JR and let him elevate your business for you.
Love that.
My second last question, what is next for you?
Yeah, so for me, kind of going through my story of getting blown up by a suicide bomber, it took me more than 10 plus years to even want to say it. That happened in 2007. As we're airing this episode right now, it's 2022. And, I really believe that what's next for me is to really get my story out there and showing people of those experiences and how it can elevate their business and professional life.
Yeah.
So I've been on a mission of getting out there to tell my story and, speaking on stages and doing workshops, traveling the country and doing different things. I'm in the process of finishing a couple book projects that talk about that, but also helping coaches with the success path on building their online business or consulting business. And I tie in a lot of my story with that. So what's next for me is doing that. I'm also in the process of I'm launching a new business that we didn't even really talk about, but it's going to be called Business Leaders BLN. So it's Business Leaders Network, and it's about education, networking, and connections, where I'm going to be focusing not just on my consulting, but giving them the tools and the education that they need, connecting them with the right people that they can do what I call your power team, and also networking so that way they're engaged with the right people. So that's the new business launch that we're going to be doing probably later this month, if not the 1st of October. For getting that going. And that's been in the works for over a year now. And now we're kind of in the point where, okay, let's get this off the ground. So those are some big projects that I'm working on right now. I'm really excited about it because one of my big passions is not necessarily just coaching and teaching, but connecting people with the right people. Yes. And I like to say that I'm really good at connecting people because I really focus on building my network, but also bringing people into the world and get them connected with the right individuals that can help them as well.
Wonderful. I think that's fantastic. You're branching out, and to me, networking is of superior importance when you're a leader, especially if you are in business. You have to network extensively. So the Business Leaders Network is going to make such a huge impact. And we look forward to the launch on the 1st of October. We are so happy with you.
Yeah, thank you.
My final question, JR. Do you have any words of wisdom for the audience today?
Yeah, so it goes back to our creed and the question that I asked you before. So if anyone that's listening to this, if you really want to elevate your business or even personal life, you got to be committed, you got to be consistent, and you got to make sure you're organized with what you want to do. But going back to the creed and what it stands for, ask yourself, what is the one thing that you're most committed to? That you're going to be resilient even through the most difficult times, that you're going to show up every day giving your best and having the mental and physical discipline to complete your mission. So you got to figure out what is that mission, what is that goal, what do you want to achieve, and you got to be resilient to push through no matter what. Because here's the thing: if it's easy to hit that snooze button, if it's easy to say, "Hey, I'm going to go out with my friends and do these other things," and it's keeping you from completing your mission, then your purpose and your why and your creed is not big enough. You need to figure out what is that's going to give you the fire that's going to help you guys get out of bed every single day to do the things that you need to do to make sure that it pushes you forward close to that mission that you want to accomplish. And that starts with your creed.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. And I'm learning so much from you today. And I just want to thank you from Meticulous Moments. It was a splendid experience to have you on this podcast today. We've learned so much. And you should know that we are going to cheer you on as you go from strength to strength. Thank you for the impartation of knowledge and wisdom today. It was wonderful to have you.
No, thank you so much. I appreciate you inviting me to be a guest on your show.
Absolutely a pleasure. And to the Meticulous Moments audience, thank you for joining us. We will be sharing JR's contact details. Please reach out to him, network with him, contact him, and he will help you elevate your business. Have a lovely day. Until next time.